players in a game right now. And I'm sure it's a very common variety description of life, which LRH has said many times. You are all playing a game. Some of you are playing many games. But there's one thing that we're all playing, and that's the game of life. Now you can either be a game maker or a game unmaker, both the highest on the scale. Or you can be a player or assistant player. Or you can be a piece or you can be a broken piece in that game. It depends how you want to play that game. If you want to play full blast, then you're going to have to get up to the maker and the unmaker of that game. Now, this sometimes can be very gruesome to a Thetan for someone to tell him where is he at that game. What level of doingness, beingness, and havingness is he playing that game? There's one thing with LRH. I've had many conversations with him many times, and I've always gotten a cognition out of one of his conversations. And the first time that I actually worked with him on a non-auditor type of post was where I worked with him directly all day, taking care of things for him, helping with administration, that. And the first thing he said to me was, "You think I'm God, don't you?" And personally to myself I said, "You're damn right I do." I did feel a little embarrassed him saying that to me. You know, I felt, why am I sitting in this chair listening to someone saying, "You think I'm God?" And, you know, I had my own hidden standards then, and I thought, yes, you are. So he looked me in the eye and says, "I'm sorry to disappoint you. I'm not." Well, I felt like even getting out of that chair more because the situation was getting worse for me. And it actually turned on a tremendous fear for me at that time. And it's actually the point that I came out as fear as a Thetan. If LRH could write in 1953, he came out of being low tone on a very low level. You know, I mean, I think I had to write in honesty to say I have now come out of fear as a Thetan in 1971. So there he said, "I'm not God." And I thought, just hold on to your chair, because I knew something else was coming. And he looked me in the eye and he says, "But I'm damned OT. I'm very OT." And I thought, this is enough, I had it. I thought, this is getting worse as this is going on. And I think he picked that up. And I could meekly get out. "I know you are." You know, my own creation of effect at that point. And the one thing he said, looking me really in the eye and understanding the situation I was in, is, "You can be as OT as I am." Now at that point, things started shattering for me. Because I've held him out there so far that it was something way in the future that maybe someday I could achieve being like that. Well, one thing I thought at that moment was, you know, it's going to take me a long time to catch up with him. And he must have picked it up because, see, I was first day on this post working for him, and I was sitting in that chair, and he says, "At all times you have to keep 22 steps ahead of me." And I thought, I've lost already. And his next comment after that was, "You already lost 20 sitting in that chair and listening to me now, because you should be 22 steps moving right now." So it gave me a little insight into the man right away, what was demanded of me and expected of me, and what the game was. He set out the rules, and he immediately set out the rule: you do not postulate you lose. You do not postulate you succumb, and the one thing you don't postulate is you cannot do it. This brings the subject to Eos. You could take a slow boat to China if you want to. You could take the Queen Elizabeth to China if you want to. You could take a 747 to China if you want to. You could take a concourse to China if you wanted to, if that was the end point. Or you could take an X-15, which is a supersonic plane, to China if you want to. And I'm sure beyond that they have other rockets that could get you there pretty fast. In other words, there's a speed factor involved. The L's constitute the fact of, I'm sure you're familiar with this, you ever hear the be, do, have, and how it relates to the L's? With L10, it's the doingness. With L11, it's the havingness. With L12, it's the beingness. The be, do, have theory is quite misunderstood or not really comprehended, but believe it or not, the be, do, have is the conditions of the game. I'm going to read you something way back in Fundamentals of Thought here. There are three conditions, circumstances, qualities of existence. These three conditions comprise life. And that's the condition of being, the condition of doing, and the condition of having. All three factors you are now clicking in this moment. They are constantly clicking in your universe. You are being something right now. Or you're being many things right now. You are doing something right now. And some of you might be doing many things right now, even though you are calmly sitting in that chair. There's a lot of things occurring in that universe. And you're having, or havingness, is occurring right now. To some degree you can have me. To some degree you might not be able to have me. So those three factors are constantly clicking, occurring at all times in your life, in the game, because that's part of the game. You can take any person and you can put them on that scale. Be, do, have. I'm going to tell you about the L's in sort of like a sequence of how they've kind of been done on many people. L11, L10, and L12. L11 deals with the happiness. I brought some paper, some briefing sheet, so you could read this after, and we'll get a little more idea of what I'm going to talk about. And the L11 always talks about we handle the mechanism that makes this world crazy. Well, I've done a lot of L11s. And it amazes me each time I do one. In other words, what we're doing with the L's is we are grabbing that person by his latent throat, and we're getting to confront things, knowingly or unknowingly. We are ridding things, awarely or unawarely, to the PC, very, very fast. In other words, it's to bring him upscale very fast. So, going back to your slow boat to China, how fast do you want to go up on the be, do, have? How fast do you want to go up the chart? How fast do you want to get through your OT3 or your net for OTs or your solo net for OTs? The L's is a judging factor. A lot in the early 70s and going later 70s, a lot of people who did the L's were a lot of mission holders, a lot of businessmen. Very interesting. It was talked about. It was considered one of the elite services of flag, and which still is. But funny enough, a lot of the powerhouses were doing them. And it was not constantly pushed that it was a must. Because it was not a must. It was not on the grade chart. But it parallels that grade chart. It's like a Thetan booster, using terms described many times over, to push that Thetan faster, higher, and as quick as we can. Now, LRH had a lot to say about the L's, and you're going to read a lot of quotes in these things that we're giving out here. I won't necessarily go over all of them, but I will go over some of them. And one of them that really hit me, and someday I hope you have the opportunity of reading all the technology of the L's. It's, to those who have done net for OTs will see the discovery of it way back when, and other technologies have come out since. But the technology behind it is so unbelievable, is so incredible, that I still believe that it's, the OT levels beyond and above, have been mentioned in this technology. So, L11, the new life rundown. People talk happiness. I will be honest with you, from my viewpoint, we grab the Thetan by the throat, or we get a boot, and we kick him so hard. Now I'm giving you an analogy here. I, as an auditor, do the kick him with the foot. But we do grab, we go in for the aberration, the major aberration. The big, insane, stumbling, the dirty, the non-confronted. The thing that is just solid. Hit it. And we go in with a fist and dynamite, and we blow it. Now, again, many times I have said at the end of the session, what would you care to say or ask before I end the session? And the piece would go, what happened? What did we do? Well, sometimes we can go very fast, and we don't have time for cognitions. We don't have time to sit there and say, now that's very interesting. We don't have time for that. It's just in and out. And it's in and out, in and out, in and out, as many times as that session as we can do it. Now, let me tell you, it takes quite an auditor to do that. Now, I've audited probably over 60,000 hours now in my career. I've lost track of it. And I've taken a long route to get there, and I've trained under LRH personally many times, and I have been through many cram cycles, and I've been through many retrips, and I'm not setting up a set pattern that's what it takes to get there. I've been through a rough road, just like any LR, but we come to the point that it all falls into place. When you start dealing with handling floating TAs, you start seeing a whole new view of life. So, taking the FNing TA, you say to the PC, you can have your cognitions out of session. If you want to look at what we run, or look at the significance, or think about it, do it after session, please. Not that is said, though. All I'm trying to describe is the velocity of what occurred. Like, if each action we did, and we allowed the PC to just sit there and really take a look at what happened, he's going to be there for an hour or two. Because what occurs is, anything you care to say at the end of the session? Yeah, what happened? Well, you had a session, and did you enjoy it? Hey, I feel fantastic. Well, great. So, end of session, comes in the next session, have any wins since the last session? And then you get all the wins. They just come in. Let the guy take his non-session time to cognite. Gives him something to do. But the magnitude of how it hits, it's like you don't realize it. Now, in the L's, you're gone for some very heavy things. It's like if you are a 20-ton or a 100 billion-ton rocket machine, I guarantee you, you have some boosters on that rocket you don't need. And why? Is because instead of pointing this way, boosting you up, they're turned upside down, going down that way. And I'll tell you something. When these things were laid in down the time track, you gladly said, give it to me. They were given to you so beautifully. You have forgotten what's been given to you. So, what we're trying to do is we're trying to swish these booster rockets around. Because you have power in you. It's unbelievable. Have all of you seen a copy of the new HCOV on OT maximums? Yeah. I'll just read you something from LRH. Just give a little bit of description of what I'm talking about. For some time now, I've been engaged on a path of OT research, resulting in the new OT levels, and which will result in never-before dreamed-of states of being for Thetans. Now hear this. In order to help you along the road to OT, I'm going to release the following OT data that you can use to pull up your theta bootstraps and get it along up the road. These are OT maxims. Know them well. Power, defined as light year. That's light year. If you're not familiar with it, just look back on your space track. Light year was a common term, not miles, light years. Kilotons per microsecond. Power, defined as light year kilotons per microsecond of a thetan, is measured by nothing else than the distance, defined as spherical spatial length, around him in his environment that he can control. And that is the underlying power of a thetan. The totality of it, believe it or not. That's it, my friends. The power of a thetan is measured by nothing else than the distance around him in his environment that he can control. Sit on and think of that one for a while. And he defines this as light year kilotons per microsecond. He's not talking inches and miles or yards. And he's not talking tens of years or thousands of years. So, on the L's, what we're trying to do is unleash power. And the reason we're trying to do it is we want people to get through things faster. There's quite a shift that's occurred at Flag recently. A lot of net for OT PCs are getting onto the L's. In fact, there's 33 of them right now at this moment, the day I left. And you got to realize there's around 23 that complete a week in the L's HGC. But there are 33 right now. Net-Pro T's doing it. Why? Because DLs tend to push the beam up very fast. Tends to push your confront up. Tends to push your beingness up. You're doing this up. You're having this up. Your confront up. Your power up. Goes back to the slow boat to China. You can go as fast as you want to go. Be my guest. LRH is trying to get everybody up much faster. There are different types of beings in this room. Some are capable, far more capable than others. Others have other interests and are far more capable in those interests than other thetans are in other interests. Each individual has his own peculiarity and individuality. He has his own power. But I'll tell you one thing I've learned on the L's, that each individual has a power supply in some area, in some dynamic, that supersedes another person who I consider more dynamic as an individual than this other person. But this person, who I consider less dynamic, has a power surge on something else that this individual does not have or have interest in. Yet, that interest and that power is almost like one of his basic purposes. Each individual has separate purposes, and yet to some degree are in a good direction. So L11, yes, what we do, we're trying to grab out of the thetan a very basic aberration. L11 is composed of a number of steps, 6 very intensive steps. The first step will tend to blow your mind, to be mild about it. If you ever do it, you'll find out why. It tends to get you to look at a thing called stops and a thing called survival in a very different aspect than you ever looked at it before. Because why can't you have everything? Where's your happiness level? What degree of happiness do you have? Why does one guy have a happiness level different from another guy? Now, I'm not saying, we're all supposed to have Rolls Royces, but why not? In America, we'd rather have Cadillacs. But really, your happiness level. If you're 76 trillion or so, or infinite number of years old, I'm sure you deserve a Rolls Royce. But I'm not saying you have to possess it, have the thing in hand. I mean, a being's possession of something or happiness of something can just be seeing it, and it can happen. But you see, down the track, there's enforced happinesses. And those enforced happinesses also had, side by side, can happinesses. What are some of the things you can't have? I'm sure there's things that you think of, God, I love to have this, love to have that. I'm not talking about you have to have it in your garage. But if you can have it, there's no fixation on it. But down the track, you wanted things so bad. Or you did want things so bad that you really put a confusion on this happiness button. You really did a number on it, my friends. I speak for myself too. But your happiness concepts got a little confused. And your happiness level of life got down to a very small sphere. All I'm trying to tell you is that your happiness level is far, far greater than you think. You might be compromising with your own reality right now of your happiness level. But I could sit you down in a room and I can guarantee you, by talking with you, that you do not agree with them. I could. You see some blinking and yes, the nods in the room and that. So there's an aberration in this aspect. There's a very serious aberration in this. And you know what? You know what the sad thing about it is? You don't know what it is. Now, I'm not trying to put you effect by saying there's a known and you don't know it. I'm not. In fact, to some degree, I am pushing your Phaeton vision eyes in that direction already. In fact, some of you are now thinking of your own level of happiness right now. Some of you have a compulsive level of happiness. Some of you are gone down to an inhibited level of happiness. Now, I'm not, in my talk, when I say you, I'm speaking kind of general, and I'm not going to use examples outside the room. We take for granted what applies in this room applies outside this room to other human beings. But look at your happiness level. Some of you have a very high happiness level. Some of you have no fixation on it. Fantastic. Great. But some of you wonder, why can't I have things? Well, that's what L11 deals with. And it deals with a very shocking thing. And I use that word descriptively. I'm not going to tell you you're going to go in there and go scared or something like that, no. But we are going in with rockets on the pre-PC or the pre-OT. And we are going for blood, because LRH researched it out. And during the research of the L's, he himself was amazed by what he discovered. He said he hit into a terrain, a territory unknown. In other words, what he was saying, he hit upon something that he himself was not aware of. He said he did hit upon it in 1956 and 1945. Just hit on it, touched it. But it wasn't until the development of the L's that he really hit it. So L11 usually takes around 25 hours. It can be done after clear, sunshine rundown, after OT3, after NED for OTs, or after the new OT4. It's a very quick rundown. For some OTs and mid for OTs, it's lightning fast. Then comes the next rundown, which is L10. Now, L10 is a beauty. LRH himself has considered it one of the most dynamic processes ever developed. It's 23 steps, give or take a few, depending on the situation and what occurs to where you get at the end of it. L10 tends to take you. You know how you sometimes alter this thing or lie about things to yourself? I mean, let's be honest. I mean, if we need an example, I can say I have. Sure, I've altered it, things I see, perceive, or my version of the story, my viewpoint of the situation. Well, as you view an accident and give your version of it, so will you give your version of your own case. And sometimes your version of your own case is really not how it happened. And you know something? You'll even cough up that that really is the case. You'll finally say, well, that wasn't really what happened. We'll take a few gradient steps to kind of get you to look in that direction, because we're dealing with some very heavy stuff, some stuff that is just not confronted, because if you confront it, it won't be there. L11 hits on this thing called the greatest purpose in the universe is the creation of an effect. You're doing this your cause level. And let me tell you, when you can't create, you can't do, or you can't create an effect, you might as well go buy yourself a coffin, because it's a proven fact. When a person can no longer create an effect, he is dead. Now, how much effect do you create in your environment? Well, not even that. How much effect can you have creating? Let's put it more bluntly. How much effect can you put out into the environment that you really can feel comfortable with? Well, you can answer this yourself. Do you hesitate creating some effects? Have you created effects in the past and no longer do? Did you used to create a 20 million mile effect and now maybe create a 3-foot effect? Listen, let's not joke about it, or not fool ourselves. You know, and I know you know, that you have sat there in one very silent moment and knew that you could do things far greater than other people think you can do. I know you've done that, because in a conversation with LRH one time, he said to me, he says, there's one thing I will not have, that you cannot be more able than you are. It doesn't go in my universe, and it doesn't go in the universe around me. He says, I live this philosophy. I will demand the utmost of myself. And when I have demanded the utmost of myself, I will demand more. And those around me, I will never allow them to think less of themselves. I will always push them, even though they themselves don't feel they can do it. Well, L10 goes into the reasons. It takes why you are not the powerhouse you should be. And I'll tell you, everyone in this room is a powerhouse, and you're not going to tell me you're not. And I don't care what you justifications, they're handled too on L10, by the way, what considerations you have of why. Because you have tons of considerations on it, tons of altruismness on it, and tons of reasons why, and tons of justifications why you are not powerhouse. And you know it. That's the funny thing about it. Everyone's sitting here. I don't care. You know it. Sometimes it's hard to look at it. It's sometimes it can be disappointing. Fair enough. Just do it on a gradient. Keep extending your reach and doing this and you'll do fine. So L10 takes the Thetan and pushes him in the reach aspect of things. It takes the barriers of stopping reach. Sure, other auditing and that are always working on these mechanisms I'm talking about, the BDU have, the doing this. Of course, these just tend to be a little more subtle about it, a little more direct about it. In other words, you get many benefits from a process. Many benefits. And sometimes you don't know the benefits. This one says, now listen, we're going to be doing some processes. And what we're going to be doing some processes on is we're going to do it on the subject called, why aren't you a powerhouse? How come you're not creating big effects? How come? That's what we want to know. We want to know why you're not out there, why you're not creating some OT effects. Now, I'm being blunt with you. I want you to look at this subject. We're not going to be reasonable with you. I know you would like us to say, leave you alone. But you wanted to do the L. You sat in that chair. So let's get down and let's talk basics now. You're the one who said you wanted to do your reach. You're causing this level. You're doing this level more. Okay. Now, you agreed to that. Now, we're going to agree to a few things because, buddy, we're going to look at why you're not doing it. And we're going to look right at you, and we're going to not tell you why. We're going to stick your nose in it because this might be hard to confront. I know you don't want to look at it. I know you've given up and you're in apathy about life and about the game. I know your axiom 10 of the highest purpose of the universe is just shot. And I know all that stuff. But you sat down here. Now, buddy, this is what we're going to do. And I'm telling you, it's like that. But it's not that type of R factor. I tell you, it can be embarrassing being an L10 PC in front of a Class 12 auditor. Because your defensive mechanisms are shot. I mean, it's like, come on. Now, you know, I got what you said. I don't believe you one single bit. So in the research, Ulrich was trying to put his reality. He's a powerhouse. And he is trying to say anybody can be a powerhouse, for God's sake. So he had to develop this type of process. And it can be embarrassing to you. But I'll tell you, it's the greatest embarrassment you will ever experience. Because you know something, it's so deep in you. It's so deep down inside of you. That generator of power. I don't care how far you've gone down. I don't care how far you've hidden. How far you said to yourself, I'm just going to relax this lifetime. I'm not dynamic. I'm like, I got responsibilities, children, and this and that. I'm living this type of life. You know, I live with people who can't have that stuff. You know, it's like, let's take it on a gradient, you know? I mean, I'm sure I could get all of them from you right now. It's like, listen, I understand it's great. I understand, you know? But, like, let's take it easy. Let's not rock the boat. Let's not shake things. Life is going great for me. Don't rock the boat much further. You know, I'm moving along. I'm going along. I'm doing nice. I'm getting up the bridge. You know, everything's fine. Right. But if you're willing to go for broke on it, if you're willing to say, listen, I want to be a powerhouse. I want to shoot through it. L10. And if I ever had the pleasure of auditing you, I I won't give you the R factor because you already got it. I'll tell you, sometimes I come out of an L10 session and it's like a cognition for me as an auditor. It's because the aberrations are common. And like I say, they can be embarrassing. When you get to be an L10 auditor, a class 12 auditor auditing L10, the buttons are flat. Because it takes up some very embarrassing things, not as a humanoid, not as a Homo sapien, but as a OT. You ever see an OT? I'm not talking about an OT3. I'm talking about OT. I'm talking about a very powerful thing. Have you ever seen an embarrassed, very powerful thing? It's a very interesting phenomenon. It is not like, oh, or it's not like, no. An OT thing who becomes embarrassed. It's quite a sight to see. Because it's cringing. It's like, I know. It's like, why do we have to open the door right now? It's like, you get the greatest. I'm not talking about I don't have enough time or I don't have enough this justification. I'm talking about you get OT justifications. You get all track justifications. You get the greatest justifications for not opening that door of why I'm not as powerful. It's unbelievable. So, LRH has developed the technology to guidely push you into the area on a gradient. It takes 23 steps to do it. And sometimes you wonder after the first 3, my God, what are the next 20? Yeah, what happens as you go along? Your confront comes up, your responsibility comes up, your less altruism or lying about the situation disappears. Your attributes come up, your power comes up. They better, because the next steps, you're going to need it. And that's what the thing is. It's to develop your reach, your space, your effect. Come on. What effects? You can create tremendous effects. So, you ever want to know what L10 does? That's what it does. A lot of people, like I say, on FROTs, do an L before going on SoloNet. The reason why, this takes your confront around 20 billion kilowatts per microsecond and lights it. And you go into your next level with that viewpoint or that power. Now, I'm going to tell you a little about L12, and then I'm going to combine all these together and give you a little viewpoint. L12 is 3 steps. Step 3, the tech on step 3 has never been used on any other level and never will be. To get to step 3, you have to go through a step 2. To get through step 2, you got to go through step 1. If you don't go through those steps, you won't go to step 2 or 3. Now, beingness. A great subject. You hear L12 with beingness. But take a look. Who are you being right now? Now who are you being? Who were you being last week? Well, as people go up in Scientology, they become more and more themselves. What L12 does is, take a look at the time track. We'll say 76 trillion. Okay. Let's say, we'll multiply that maybe by around million? The number of bodies or beingnesses? Is that fair enough? Is that a reasonable type of thing? If we said 76 trillion, and then in that 76 trillion you had so many bodies or beingnesses. Maybe that's a fair, maybe we'll say 50, let's say 50,000. I know that's understating it. Yeah, 50,000 Venuses on the track. Then how many Venuses, say like valences, have you taken on? Let's add 100,000. I'm being real low on this now. So we're at 150,000. And there's many types of valences. Some force valences, attention grabber valences. I want to be like him valences. So let's add another 200,000 maybe. So we'll say half a million. That's really an understatement. We'll say 50,000. And what we'll do is we'll add on around another 3 million. And that we'll leave it at that. So 3,000 Venuses, identities, 4 valences on the time track. You really covered it up, didn't you? You really covered it. Ellery says the basic personality is unbelievable. Now you take covering that basic personality, keep covering it. Now, you pick any one of these balances, Venuses, identities, you got to realize there's a lifetime that attaches to that. You got to realize everything that occurred in that lifetime is wrapped in it. You think this life is bad? I'll tell you, you've had some rougher ones. And if those rougher ones you carry around in a unknown beingness, just unbelievable. Now, Ulrich developed L12. He was amazed with what he found. Now, L12 can be done on an OT, and if OT, person after clear. What L12 does, it tends to shatter, rip apart these Venuses, valences. Now, I'm not giving you anything confidential. I'm not setting you up for anything either, if you ever do it. I have reworded this to some degree to explain it to you somewhat, because the material is very confidential. Now, those who are OT, you might wonder, well, what happens on a non-OT? Well, let me tell you what happens on a non-OT who gets L12. He doesn't know what hits him. He doesn't know what is happening. But all he does know is something is happening. And I have done a number of people on L12 who are non-OT. Now, me being a NOTS OT, I go, my God, this guy only knew what was going on. But you know something? It didn't matter. It didn't matter. He was getting the benefit of any NED or OT would benefit by. How come you're not being totally yourself? Now we can say, what's totally yourself be? You know, some people it's calm, cool, collective. I don't think I'll actually agree with that. You know, I look back over the years and I'm coming more and more here as myself, and amazes myself as I continue along. And it amazes what I thought who I was, or my beingness, or myself was years back. But let me tell you something. You know this question, who am I? This famous question? You think you've answered it totally. I hate to tell you something. You haven't. You have answered it for all means and purposes of being able to survive better and who you are. Oh yeah. Many of you know who you are, and that's true. But on F12 we say who you really are. Because, you are being something right now. Next lifetime, you're going to be something else. Do you ever think of that, what you're going to be next lifetime? That's a very interesting subject. You're going to have to pick the beingness. It's your game. I mean, people don't look at the next lifetime or 100 years. They're too involved in what's going on in PT. But tell you something, I already got my next 300 years marked up. I mean, it's down. I might have to change those considerations of what I have marked up over the next couple of years, but from this reality, I view things in the future. But you're going to run into that situation. But here's the thing. You're in a game called life again, and you're a player, or you're a piece, or you're a broken piece in it, or you're the maker of the game, or you're the creator of the game. But you're one of them. And in one of those categories, you have an identity in it, a beingness in it. Another one. You're in those categories of either you're the creator of the game, or you're the unmaker of the game, and those are very high. Or you're a player, an assistant player, or you're a piece, or you're a broken piece. And I'll tell you, this planet is full with broken pieces. And you sitting in this room makes you a player, I hate to tell you. Because I don't think any of you are pieces. You're players. And there's a number of you who are creator of games, maker of games, and unmaker of games. You know what the game of Scientology is doing? It's unmaking this game that we're all in. It's unmaking a game. That's unheard of. And believe it or not, you are unmaking the games you have played through the time track on the be-do have. You have. Now, tell me if this doesn't get confusing. With those 5 million beingness doing this, balances or whatever, it can get confusing at times of who you are. Now, it can get confusing in environments where there are situations that you have to adopt another beingness knowingly. In other words, you can go with certain people in a certain situation and you have to take on a different beingness. Third dynamically, I have a different beingness than I do first dynamically or second dynamically. I can adapt or switch as I wish. But sometimes in this switching over, there can be a clicking mechanism. And that clicking mechanism can go click. And what can happen is it can suddenly go click, 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 click. And it can go at a rapid pace. And at that rapid pace, you can get in some serious trouble. It's like a movie projector that's gone out of control. And when you lose that control sometimes, you've lost your power position. So L12 tends to go into that area very deeply. I won't tell you the L12R factor. That, my friends, would be a little too heavy right now. Not really. It's just going to have you take a deep look. Though some of you might think of what it is, I'm really giving a watered-down version of it. Believe it or not, I really am. I'm trying to bring over what it is into how I can tell you non-confidentially. So it gives you a little idea. So the be, do, have, you're operating at all times. Let me take a look. Who are you being right now? Just think of it right now. In life. During the week, tomorrow, I guarantee you tomorrow you're going to take on a new beingness some way. Sometime during the day you're going to do it knowingly, or some of you are going to do it unknowingly. And just like in a day, you took on the wrong beingness. Look at this one. Maybe you got the wrong beingness this lifetime. This lifetime's like a day on the time track. Anyway, I don't want to confuse you on who you are. If some of you are starting to wonder, well, let me give you a stable datum right now. You are who you are right now. Grab it, hold on to it, and be it. But there's many things you want to be further, and be able to do it non-compulsively or without any inhibition to where you can have it or not have it. It's a very famous description on L. A person comes out, I can have having, or not have it. I can have being, I cannot have it. As you notice, that's the must-have, can-have mechanism. Well, if you can have it or not have it, you're not going to be affected by it. And there are things that you can't have. There are things. Where is your Cadillac? Where is your Rolls Royce? Being a little sarcastic right now, but what I'm trying to say is there are things that I know that you can have that you're not having. You take a look at a powerhouse like LRH. He can have this planet. He can have everything going on it. Now that's not just saying, I can have planet Earth. It's not as easy as that. I mean, you take a look at all the effects on Earth, all the beingnesses on Earth, and it can be quite overwhelming. So anyway, the thing is, the L's are theta boosters, a common description of it. LRH has ordered 50 L auditors. He wants them now. Now I ask myself, why? Why is he doing that? Why does he want them now? Sometimes in the past there wasn't enough L auditors to be trained. I'll tell you, I am elite. I'll be very blunt with you. I am one of the best. In fact, thank you. I'll never forget a story, and this will be great for you. LRH was trying to train a public relations officer for himself. And he says, you don't understand who you are working for. And the girl said, I do. You're L1 over the discoverer of Scientology. You know? He says, you don't understand that. And he kept on putting her back to figuring out. In other words, figuring out who she worked for. She never got it. He said, that's it. I'm going to tell you who you work for. Or how you describe to me is you work for not a good man, a discoverer of research. You work for a great man, because I am great. Now I think if all of us in this room said that we are great, you will see a very change of characteristic occur. But let me tell you, if I had cognition already, I am great. And it's a very nice cognition to have. And it's a cognition you're going to have someday. Because you are great. I mean, it's so unbelievable how great you are. It might amaze you to hear that from me. And it might sound like a nice compliment, but I like to tell you, you are so great, it's unbelievable. And the day you come to recognize it, it is going to blow your mind how great you are. It is going to blow your mind. You're going to look in the mirror someday, and you can comb your hair and say, hey, I look pretty nice, And then there's those of us that go in the mirror and they go, how great I look, But someday you're going to look in the Thetan mirror, and you're going to say, damn it, I am great. Damn it, I am powerful. That day is going to occur. And I'll tell you, you're going to have a different viewpoint on life. You're going to be in a whole new game level. A whole new game level. And I'll tell you, I hate to tell you this. This is one thing I hate to tell people. You're going to go there someday. No matter what your considerations are, you're going to go there someday. Now, how fast you want to take the boat or the rocket, that's up to you. But you're going to go there someday. And the one thing LRH is concerned about is he needs you now. I'm not talking Sea Org or stuff like that. He needs the great you now. Because remember the who's on the evaluation. Those responsible for the civilization. And didn't do it. And it's like, all we're trying to do on the L's is give you that. Because the day when you realize how great you are, I hope I'm there. Because it's going to be a sight to see. And sometimes it comes only to yourself, somewhere away from others. And you know what you do after that when you find out how great you are? You know what people do? This is what I found. They don't tell anybody. You know, all of a sudden it's a big withhold. I'm great. I'm really great. In fact, I'm fantastic. And I'm beautiful. You walk outside, everybody's there. Oh, okay. How you doing today? Yeah, I feel pretty good. You know? You ask the guy, how you being today? Oh, okay, pretty good. But it's the big withhold. You know, it's like, don't say it. Don't say it, how great you are. Well, you know what? LRH has no reservations on doing it. Because he is great, and he knows it, and he ain't going to fool with it. You're not even egotistical yet. You haven't even understood the concept of, like, man, I'm really great, you know? I mean, I'm fantastic. In fact, I'm perfect, or something like that. It goes into a whole new spirit. And, you know, that is waiting for you there. So, you have something to look forward to in life, you know? So, if you ever get the chance, do them. If you go on to Net for OTs, you're going to go into it as a powerhouse. If you're going to go up the bridge, you'll go into it as a powerhouse. Because you can take which boat you want to. You can get up there, you know, as slow as you want. But what I'm trying to tell you is LRH needs you now. All of you, now. And we're not talking about, you know, sometimes, like, when you become aware of this stuff, you can start doing it. But you have your own influences in your own areas. We need you there. We need you creating effects. We need you doing it badly. But one thing we need you doing also is getting up the bridge. And I know the justifications for it. I know them. I've heard them all. Don't be reasonable. Do me one favor, don't. Because I could take an L rundown on you, and at the end of that L rundown, you say, boy, wasn't that a good justification? I could. So, just keep moving. So anyway, we got an interesting game ahead. I think some of you are going to have to, you know, start thinking how great you are, and, you know, start creating the effects a little bigger. We have some weapons to give you to help do that. And if you see some people who are very dynamic or feel they need some boosters, you always can talk about what I spoke about tonight. Because one quote I already said about the, I'm going to end off this speech on this. This is on the L's. This process, and this was delivered during the pilot days back in the 70s, all right? The research was not fully done at that time, but all the L's were being delivered at the time to people. This process, which has brought about the boom stats, there is a direct relationship between the process, meaning the L's, and a person booming stats, because the individual is given sufficient power and has enough guts to go out and do what he intended to do because he no longer had to break himself down. The planetary boom depends on this and these discoveries. Why does a being in an OT restrain himself and cease to behave as an OT? This is what we are handling. This is what the L's are all about. We're going to give a guy guts, power, so he can do the L. Thank you.